we talked about it, but it was supposed to clear up by now, right? So then we thought we'd go ahead. Okay, I'll look to my clerk for a roll call.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have all members of council in attendance today, with the exception of Councillor Hamlin sends her regrets. We have alternate Councillor Catherine McDonald here from Midland. Alternate Councillor Henry Sanders here from Councillor Michael Smith. And we have alternate Councillor Gerard LaChapelle is currently absent. Everyone else in attendance, you have your quorum, Your Worship.
Thank you. Does there anybody have to leave early today? If so, please let us know at that time. But so I'll look for Councillor Dolan for approval of the agenda.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by alternate Councillor Sander. That the agenda.
We don't have him.
I'm sorry?
We don't have Sander.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
no, Sanders. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yep. That the agenda for the November 28th, 2023 meeting of council be approved.
Right. Sorry about that, Henry. So everybody's heard the motion. Any questions? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Do I have a disclosure of pecuniary interest by any member of council? I didn't see anything that I thought would pop up. Presentations and delegations, we have none, but we consent agenda. Councillor Burkett.
Thank you. Good morning, Your Worship. Through you, moved by myself, second by Councillor Norcross, that the Council Communications and Proclamations November the 14th, 2023 to November 27th, 2023, having given due consideration, be received.
Thank you. Any questions on that? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And the adoption of the minutes, Deputy Warden Conklin.
Good morning, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Locks, that the following council minutes be confirmed and adopted, and Committee of the Whole reports be confirmed. County Council minutes, November 14th, 2023, and Committee of the Whole report, November 14th, 2023.
Any questions arising from the minutes? Not seeing any, so all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Presentations and considerations of the Committee of the Whole reports now. Chair Cox.
Good morning. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Evans that the performance management recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole report dated November 14th, 2023 be approved, including the 2024 budget. Any questions or comments?
Okay. I'm not seeing any. Oh, yes, Councillor Leduc.
Can we pull the 2024 budget recommendation and do it separate?
Separate motion on it?
Yes, please.
Mr. Clerk? Yeah.
Your Worship, my suggestion here would be that we approve, if Council consents, the remaining performance management recommendations, with the exception of Committee of the Whole item 5.1, the 2024 draft County of Simcoe budget. So I'd suggest we approve everything else if there's nothing else to be pulled, and then we can move to the budget.
Okay. You've heard the clerk. All in favor? Carried. I'll pass it over to you. I'm sorry.
That's all right. So we had the budget pulled, so I'll defer to Councillor Leduc. Sorry, my mic wasn't on.
Thank you, Warden. I was just, I would like to ask if we could amend the motion to read that the, to take the surplus, the future surpluses, if there's any, and add them to the tax levy, to put it to the tax levy. Seeing how we're budgeting now, folks, we are including asset management in our budget. We've put that for the last couple of years. We're starting to build on asset management, that the surplus could go back to the tax levies portion of the budget. So it is created by the tax levy section. So it could go back in to help us with our offsetting tax increases year over year. So just looking to add that as an amendment to the recommendation, to add that as a, to move that to the surplus from future budgets to the tax levy portion.
So what I've got right now is Councillor Fowler and Bell that have moved the budget. So you're looking at an amendment to the budget, correct? So you would move that. Do you have a seconder? I'm looking for, Councillor Fryer, yeah. So we're looking for some clarity on that again, James, if possible.
Okay, and I apologize, I'm trying to get my stuff up, but my computer's buggered. I'm just looking, so we had a $1.8 million surplus this year. It was 1.3% of the budget, so I'm looking in future years. We budget pretty tight, and we've done a great job with budgeting. So we have an asset management plan built into our system now. It's already there. We're doing capital. Capital is funded through mostly DCs and everything else. So the asset management plan is there to handle our capital portion of our budget. So in my mind, the surplus is created from a tax levy base, and we just put it back into the tax levy. So it offsets the increases for the future years. It's there for future years. We now put it into our capital. So
Yeah, I think right now it goes into reserve, and you're suggesting then the surplus would go into the future years as a tax reduction.
As a tax reduction, yes.
All right, so is everybody clear on that motion? Questions or comments on that? I would have concerns with that, because whenever you're dealing with surplus and you start lowering taxes, what happens in the year when you don't have a surplus? Now all of a sudden you're hitting folks even harder. But Councillor Cox and Councillor Dolan. Go ahead, Judith.
I'd just like to question the fact about development charges, because our development charges are not what they used to be, and they will not be what they used to be. So I don't think I know I'm not in favor of this, but I would just like confirmation from CAO.
You're filling in for Trevor today, and I see Leland's here as well.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. You're correct. There were some modifications to the Development Charge Act, particularly impacting housing and some of the monies that we could acquire from housing. There are a few services of ours that are, as you know, not development charge applicable as well. So there is definitely a loss in revenues related to development charges. Is that the question? In terms of the surplus, just for the benefit of councillors, every time we have a surplus, we bring that report forward to council. It's council's prerogative as to what to do with that surplus, but traditionally the move has been to put that surplus into the into the general contingency reserve. And as you know, we utilize the general contingency reserve in part when we're addressing the next year's budget. So that's the process that currently exists.
Yeah, and supplementary, we all know that we have a crisis in homelessness and affordable housing, so I am not ready to take the surplus that I'm not even sure what it is and put it in now. I would prefer to wait to see when it comes in and we can make a decision then. Thank you.
Councillor Dolan.
Very, very similar comments, Your Worship. If ever there was a year not to mess with revenue for reserves, it's this year with the uncertainty created by Bill 23. When our development charges are updated, there's a 5-year phase in till we get to what we think we need. And even then, you know, we all know that growth doesn't pay for growth. And now with the added pressure of Bill 23, I think anything we can do to increase our reserves, we should be doing.
Well, I believe we drew from our reserves this year. I can't support the motion. We did the exact opposite in Ramera. We dedicated all surpluses to our reserves, and we have a tax stabilization reserve where it goes, because if we end up with a shortfall one year, we don't have to go back to the taxpayers and do a supplementary and increase taxes to make up for a deficit at the end of the year. We can pull it out of that reserve, and that way we can keep a stable and get through years and hopefully always have a surplus. But there's the odd year when you don't have a surplus, when you end up with a deficit. Councillor Smith.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Through you, although I respect Councillor Duke's point here, and this is a tough year, tough times for everybody, I think if ever there's a time for us to be even more fiscally responsible, then it's today. The pressures that come onto local councils, and including this council, are unbelievable, and those are not going to get better. And you know, even though we may be having all the mechanisms in place to plan for future, our asset management, so on and so forth, what we absolutely know today is that whatever we believe something costs today or even tomorrow is not going to be the cost tomorrow. It's going to be even higher. And so I can't support this with all due respect. I think that we need to be as fiscally responsible as possible, and we need to keep those funds for future dilemmas. There's many municipalities in this House today who I'm sure over the years wish that we hadn't given everything back and had saved for future issues, water, wastewater, you name it. And so I cannot support this. Thank you.
Councillor Fryer.
Thank you, Warden Clark. I support The crux of it for me is I'm passing a 3.75% increase, and then I turn around and have a surplus. And in my view, that surplus should go back against that 3.75. It's different when there's no change in taxes or a small change in taxes, but right now we're seeing significant change in taxes, and we're telling the public that we're doing zero-based budgeting. So I support the motion. I would ask for clarification through you to the CAO. I don't recall the 1.8 million surplus from last year coming to the table. I thought that the surplus policy applied it, and applied it the way that the Treasurer had explained last week. And I thought in the case of deficits, that automatically goes against the next year's levy. So that's the process. If it's a deficit, it's incorporated in next year's levy. So it seems logical to me, if it's a surplus and we've had a major increase in taxes, we should be giving it back to the taxpayer. Thank you.
CEO Aiken.
Yeah, I see the treasurer's here. I'll let the treasurer address the specific question, and maybe I can comment after.
Thank you, through the warden. The surplus from the previous year, 22, was brought forward in a report earlier in May, and that was brought before the House at that time. The surpluses have been historically, as mentioned before, been transferred to various reserves over the past number of years, housing reserves as well as general contingency reserve. And that is always, as mentioned previously, brought forward to committee.
So, carry on, Councillor.
Just to follow up, I'll apologize for not recalling that. I think it's just part of being green coming into the process. Through you to Councillor Leduc, if it's coming back to the table, then I'm comfortable with just waiting until that comes back to the table. And if there's a surplus, then we discuss about the allocation. I don't know how you feel about it, but that's my thoughts now.
Councillor Leduc.
Yeah, Warden, and I respect the House's decision, and I see that it does come back for us to deal with in the future, and I certainly would like that. I still believe the same, that it should go back to the taxpayer. When I look at the surpluses now, we've already budgeted reserves. We already budgeted there. It's transfer to and transfer from. And so we budgeted, we put $37 million into reserves. Well, the past 10 years, the reserves are up 184%. So I'm not worried about reserves. We're in solid ground. If you go through this budget, we're in solid ground when it comes to our budgeting process. I was just asking that we take that surplus that has been given to us by the tax levy and put it back into the tax levy system. We already have our budgeting for the reserves and everything else. It's already built into our budget process, so it's not like we have to worry about that. The $1.8 million goes into this year's $1.8 million is nice. It's nice to have, but that would have saved us 1%. It would save us 1% of our budget. So it's something I want to look at in the future, and I think it's something we should be doing, is putting it back to the tax levy and then budgeting off that. Because if we have a deficit, you're right, we go against the tax levy. So I will pull the amendment if you want, because I don't know what the appetite of the House is, but we do deal with this in May from what the Treasurer said. So I would pull that.
Probably the best bet is to wait and see if we have one and deal with it at that time, rather than write in stone at this time what we want to do with money that may or may not be there. So if it's pulled, then I will go back to the original motion then of the, do you have that motion in front of you? A new motion, I guess, now that we approve the 2024 budget.
One more clarity, Warden.
Yes.
It was mentioned, our budget increase is 3.70, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Just wanted to make sure that was.
Yep. So do you have a motion for?
Yeah, thank you, Warden. I'll read out the motion here. This is item 5.1 from the Committee of the Whole, November 14th agenda, 2024 draft County of Simcoe budget. Motion reads that item CCW 2023-305, dated November 14th, 2023, regarding follow-up items from the special budget meeting and recommended changes be received, and that the proposed 2024 County of Simcoe budget be approved with the following amendments. In senior services, fund the $50,000 cost increase related to a new age-friendly study with the general contingency reserve. To reduce the HR Admin Center space redesign by $50,000 and phase the project over 2 years and align the HVAC and asset management work with this change. 3, increase fees revenue to provide an estimated $450,000 in additional revenue. And 4, This was the amendment from November 14th, reduced provision of the 1% of the levy transferred to the Economic Development and Planning Reserve for Economic Development to 0.5% from 1%. And that's the recommendation here on the budget from Committee of the Whole.
And that was what we have passed the Committee of the Whole, and I believe it was moved by Councillor Fowler, second by Councillor Bell. If there's no more discussion, all in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. That is carried. So now we are on to Human Services. Councillor Leduc.
Sorry, Warden, I was just got to get
Caught you putting the papers away.
Yes, I was trying to get organized. Sorry. So I have a motion moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McDonald, that the Human Services recommendation contained within the Committee of Whole report dated November 14, 2023 be approved with the exception of items 8.2 CCW 2023-283 Hospital Transfer of Care Performance Targets Update.
Everybody's heard the motion. Anything to be pulled from that report? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And I believe Councillor Leduc again. This one requires 2/3. This next one requires a 2/3 majority. That's why it's a separate motion.
Yes, so we're at item 8.2 at CCW 2023-283 Hospital Transfer of Care Performance Targets. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Van Staveren, sorry, that item CCW 2023-283 dated November 14, 2023 regarding hospital transfer of care performance targets update be received, and that staff be authorized to fund a one-year pilot in paramedic services in 2024 utilizing the interest earned in the Hospital Reserve Fund as generally outlined in item CCW 2023-283.
Any questions or comments on that motion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that was carried. So thank you, Chair Leduc, and now Chair Dolan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Measures that the corporate services recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole report dated November the 14th, 2023 be approved.
Any questions on corporate? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So county special committee reports, governance committee, so that would be Deputy Warden Cogman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through yourself, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Evans, that the following that the governance committee recommendations contained within the following governance committee reports dated November 14th be approved. Governance committee report November 14th, 2023, and governance committee confidential report November 14th, 2023.
Any questions on the governance committee? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Next, unfortunately, on a sadder note, we have to declare the vacancy of Councillor Compton's seat, so that item CO 2023-313 dated November 28, 2023 regarding the County Council vacancy declaration be received, and that the Town of Midland Deputy Mayor's seat on the County Council be declared vacant. Moved by Councillor Gordon, second by Councillor Sondu. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So motions which notice has been given, I'm seeing none, and notice is a motion we didn't have any. So we will now move into Committee of the Whole. So I'll get a mover to move into Committee of the Whole. Moved by Councillor Miskimins, second by Councillor Smith, that Council recess into the Committee of the Whole at 9:21. All in favor? That is carried. So we'll just wait for our city reps to come and join us. Thanks, Doug. Okay, I guess we'll do my roll call and then we can get ready to go.
Thank you, Your Worship. There's been no change since the beginning of the council meeting. As far as the city reps go, I have all in attendance with the exception of Aurelia Councillor Cipolla, Aurelia Councillor Durnford, and Barry Mayor Nuttall, with all other city reps in attendance. You have your quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll look for approval of the agenda. Councillor Dolan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor MacDonald that the agenda for the November 28th, 2023 meeting of Committee of the Whole be approved.
Any questions on the agenda? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Do I have a disclosure of pecuniary interest by any member of council on the Committee of the Whole agenda? I'm not seeing any. So presentations and delegations, we have no.
Thank you. Report CCW 2023-306. Recommendation is that item CCW 2023-306 dated November the 28th, 2023 regarding the Simcoe County Archives operations in October 2023 we received. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Bell, second by Councillor Anderson. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Now we'll go on to Chair Leduc for Human Services.
Thank you, Warden, and welcome to the city reps for being here. We are on item 20, consent agenda. I have 3 items of the consent agenda. For school resource officers, the second one is the County of Simcoe Paramedic Services COVID-19 funding update, and then we have the 2023 Ministry of Health funding grant for paramedic services. Anybody wish to pull any of these for comment? Councillor Fryer.
I'd like to pull the 20.1.
20.1. Any further for comment? So if you don't mind, I'll have a mover and seconder for this. So moved by Councillor Measures, seconded by Councillor Sandu, that items that the consent agenda items having been given due consideration be received, save and accept 20.1. Is that okay? Is there changes to this 20.1 that you want? No changes, just comments? Oh, well, we can wait then for, if you don't mind, we'll wait and hear the comments. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciated the information being forwarded to us by the letter. I'm been trying to find out more through our Collingwood board, and I'm pretty frustrated, and I wouldn't mind finding out from the letter if there was any further intention, if they were looking to communicate with the school board any further and such. Thank you.
That's a good comment, because we certainly we need that. We need our police back in our schools. So it's something that. Councillor Anderson, go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, just to comment, since it's from the Township of Agitas. Yes, so the Township sent a letter to the police services, we received a communication from the Police Services Board. So we have a tri-party agreement with ESSA, Newtecumseh, and Agitas Ferrantio. And the Police Services Board recommended that the school board utilize our resource officers in the schools. There are 2 that are dedicated in Nottawasaga Detachment. And so this was a letter to support the Police Services Board in that endeavor. And just as to your question, I guess, there is planned communication or further communication to insist that the school board set some sort of policy because since our 3 municipalities have included that in our budget for those 2 resource officers, that they should be utilized in the schools. We think it's a very worthwhile endeavor to have them in the schools to encourage the policing community. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Just to follow up as May Chair, well, thank you very much for that information, and I'll watch for the further communication. I'll plan on taking it back to our own council. I feel strongly about it as well, that we're paying for it in our budget, and I really think that the they need to be in the school. We just heard a session last week on how to protect your child from human trafficking. And listening to some of the information that was being given, it seems like more and more these students are going to be looking for help, and I think having an officer wandering through the halls is a good thing and not necessarily a bad thing. So I appreciate the information. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fryer. I now have Councillor Cox, and I have Councillor Van Staveren right after.
Yeah, I totally agree. The fact that the police aren't even in doing their DARE programs, their OPP kid programs, all the programs that are excellent that I've seen over the years, it really is a shame. And I do know that the different staff members I've talked to feel the same way. They welcome the police. It's good for the children to see the police officers as a friendly person, as someone that they, can get to know and they trust. We don't have community policing officers anymore like we used to, and that was always a good feeling in the town and in school for the children. So I definitely support this, and I think we should all be telling the school board that. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. I've got Councillor Van Staveren first, and then Councillor Dolan next.
Thank you very much. My daughter, who is a teacher in the school system, comes home many a time saying that about the relationship between the police services and the school board. And basically, the school board has kicked out the police services. There was money a number of years ago to allow for initiative to create mental health support within the school. But that's not the whole problem. The problem is what Councillor Cox just mentioned. The kids need a relationship with a police officer. They need to be comfortable with that police officer. And this is a county-wide problem. It's even a province-wide problem. And this goes right back to the school board feeling they're intimidated or whatever. I think we have to come down a little heavier on this and saying, we want this. And it's one of those things I support everything that people have said. The kids need a police officer in their relationship. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Councillor Dolan, and I got Councillor McDonald.
Thank you. Just a question, if I could, through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Anderson. Is there a similar letter or engagement with the Simcoe Muskoka District Catholic School Board?
So quick answer, no. The Police Services Board was the recommendation from the Simcoe County District School Board that we would send a letter to, so we haven't considered the Catholic School Board.
Okay, thank you. I've now got Councillor McDonald, Councillor Smith, and then Councillor Snell.
Thank you, Chair. When we brought this to it was brought up at police services boards. It was also a big outcry from not only just the students fearing when they're in the schools, but the parents. And they have done their due diligence of trying to get the school board on side with this. And Nottawasaga Police Service Board will keep pushing for this. And that's why we put out letters for everyone to get involved, because as it's been mentioned, it's not just one township, it's all over. And if we don't have that, then if you actually follow some of the school, or you get the residents calling you, some of the things that are happening in our school are very scary, and they could be minimized or eliminated by having that presence. So, thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Councillor Smith next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, forgive me, I don't recall the percentage of the numbers, but I do recall a conversation with our trustee, Mike Foley, on this not too long ago, and I think he had conversations maybe with my friend, Councillor Fry. But there's a high number of children in our schools that today are afraid. They did a survey. They're afraid to go to school. And so this whole removing resource officers from school makes absolutely no sense. And so I agree with Councillor Van Staveren. I think we need to take a heavier hand on this, if you will. And I'm not so sure that we shouldn't be putting a motion through this House and hope for a unanimous vote on that to send to the school boards, and then also forward that off to the province. Because this is, I'm sure, not just the Simcoe County District School Boards that are doing this. And I mean, our children need to be safe. We've heard this for years and years and years, that the fear that children can have of authority, like police officers, and where does it start? It starts at the elementary level in kindergarten and moves up from there. And I can tell you that in our high schools here in Collingwood and the area, they have countless children that come to them, these resource officers, on a daily basis, speaking to them, giving them information, seeking help with many issues, not just school. So it's vitally important, I think, to the good health and well-being, both mentally and physically, of our children. And I think that we should be supporting that wholeheartedly, not only at our individual councils, but also in this House. Thank you.
I thank you for that suggestion about the motion. Warden,
I was just saying I certainly would support a motion drafted from this House as well. The police officers were originally brought to the school to teach the children not to be afraid of police officers. That you can trust them, that you can be comfortable around law authority. And that's why they were originally sent there. And to have them taken away because they claim some children are uncomfortable with them, that was the whole point of them being there, was to educate the children not to be uncomfortable in front of police officers and learn that you can trust them and that there's safety there when you need it. So certainly I would support that letter.
So I've got Councillor Snell next, then I've got Councillor Bell. So I was wondering if we could have this maybe sent to the next council meeting, have staff draft a nice letter, correspondence, resolution supported by this House, going to both school boards, you know, the Premier and AMO and everything else. So is that something we could?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This one, I would say, falls somewhat in the jurisdiction of the county. We don't necessarily have staff that are experts in sort of school board matters. I would see the role of this House here as more of an advocacy role. And so, you know, if there's a desire of council to put it on the floor today, I think that's something that we can do. The warden send a letter of support for the Township of Adjala-Tosaranio resolution and convey the County of Simcoe encourages this valuable service. This is something I've drafted to continue within the school community, and that a copy of the resolution be circulated to the 2 school boards and Minister of Education based on what I heard. So that's something that could be entertained and moved and seconded today. I'm just not sure what further information would come forward from a staff report.
Okay, thank you. So, Warden, are you moving that for us?
I believe you had your mover here. I'll second it.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a mover second for that. So I'll go to further comments then. I've got Councillor Snell, Councillor Bell, and Councillor Doan. You want back in? Okay.
Thank you. Through the chair, just to sort of give some background, I sat at that table at the time that this decision was made. And it was presented to the board that there was some feedback from students who were feeling profiled and some concern around comfort levels. And I feel that the board made a swift decision, perhaps too swift of a decision, to cut all of the services. Part of the concern as well was that their DARE program, Bridges to Poverty, some other programs that they offered were outdated and were not equal in their representation. And so I think what should be happening is perhaps each of us as our individual municipalities reach out to our trustees, have a conversation with both trustees of both boards, and perhaps request or advocate that they bring forward a motion to that table to bring back or to revisit this policy, because really we can send letters all we want, but unless we have voices at that table who are willing to put forward the motions to bring the conversation back, nothing's going to go anywhere. I think as well, you know, these can be separate pieces. The OPP can look at their content and their presentation material and revisit that and update it to be more relevant and representative in today's community. But while they're doing that, the officers could still be back in school. So I would definitely support this motion, and I would definitely will be having a conversation or more conversation with Trustee Foley, as well as our trustee in the Catholic board as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Councillor Bell?
Great. Yeah, I think I was just going to bring up the other point we haven't talked about. I have quite a few friends that are police officers, and one of the issues they're dealing with now is the lack of disrespect. And I know some of them have actually quit the force because of the relationship with the public. And I think, you know, similar to recycling back in the 80s, we have to start somewhere. And I think with our kids at such a young age is an important piece. So I would absolutely support a motion to have this go forward.
Yeah, absolute respect has fallen off the table for sure. So I've got Councillor Dolan and I've got Councillor Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with what everybody has said. And the South Simcoe Police Service, which is Bradford, West Gwillimbury, and Innisfil, they have a program similar to DARE, but it's, I was just trying to find it. I think it's called Be True to You or something. So it is been updated since the DARE program. And I just had a procedural question through to the CAO. Should this, I'm just wondering if the appropriate place is this house when this house doesn't fund policing. It's a lower tier jurisdiction. Is it appropriate for this house to also be passing a letter along with all of the lower tiers?
Through the chair to Councillor Dolan. It's always appropriate, I think, to send a letter, whether it's jurisdictional or not. I think Councillor Snell made some good comments that can certainly be enrobed in the cover letter. I think what the clerk's suggesting is that we be supportive of Agilitas Ronio's letter, and perhaps in the cover letter we can address some of the things that might be more proactive if that suits Council's desire. But I don't think it's offside sending a letter.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for those comments. So I've got Councillor Gordon and I go Councillor Fryer, and then I'm going to cut it off, and we'll go to accepting the consent agenda with a resolution attached.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Clearly, I support this motion. I won't get into all the reasons why. I think everybody understands the importance of this. It is nice to hear that, you know, the school boards maybe made a reactionary sort of knee-jerk decision, which is what most of us suspect happened. It's part of the whole woke, you know, well-meaning but ill-advised decisions are made quickly without any evidence, like because of the vocal outcry of a minority. I don't mean visible necessarily or ethnic, but often it only takes a few passionate people to trigger some of these things, these changes in our society that we're trying to slowly walk back now. Anyway, long story short is, let's not stop with these 2 school boards. There are more than 2 school boards in our county. Let's make sure that this goes out to all the school boards, including the little ones. Like we have a little Protestant separate one in Penetanguishene, for example. I think we'd do ourselves a service if we focus only on the 2 bigs. And secondly, I would love to see this letter circulated to all the municipal councils in the county. And I would be more than happy to bring this and look for us, you know, our local council to add our voice to this chorus. I think if the school boards collectively are peppered with these requests that, you know, from their elected officials who are purported and being elevated to make the decisions and speak for the residents, that maybe our voice will overshadow a few people who've been very vocal in the news and have maybe triggered some of these reactionary policies. So that would be my only request for a minor amendment, if it's even that, just to include all the school boards. And I look forward to bringing this to my own council.
So great comments and great, I don't see that as an amendment either. I see it just as an add to all school boards, include all of them in the county. I have Councillor Fryer.
Thank you, Chair. And I just wanted to add, because we were talking about the police, and quite rightly so, we happen to have a fantastic resource officer. She decided to set up shop right across from the high school in the church that's there. And she gets a constant flow of kids coming in to see her. And so the police officers go the extra mile because they realize the need as well. And in Collingwood's case, we're lucky to have that kind of situation going on. But I came back to the fact that some kids just are not comfortable moving into that kind of an environment. If they're walking through the halls and all of a sudden they have the opportunity, it just jumps in their head, they'll go up to the officer and talk to them. That's what I want to see, is that it's easily accessed in every way, shape, or form. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you for this conversation. So, Mr. Clerk, I'll turn to you. Do we want to do the consent agenda, all 3 items at once, or do you want to do 2, then the consent for the 3rd with the resolution? How do you want to address this?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. If We did have a motion to receive the 3 items from Councillor Measures and Sandu. If you're okay and there's consent here to wait on that motion, we'll deal with this 20.1 here. And the motion we have is that the warden send a letter of support for the Township of Adjala-Toseranio resolution, conveying the County of Simcoe encourages the service to continue within the school community. And I did hear that a copy of the resolution be circulated to the lower tier member municipalities, Simcoe County School Boards, and the Minister of Education.
Could we also include the MPPs? Thank you.
If there's consent from the mover and seconder in this House, then we can take that as a friendly, Mr.
Is the
Chair.
consent as an add-in? Is that fine?
Yeah, that's totally fine with me. I think that's exactly what we thought we should do here, is to receive these 3 items and support the resolution for a letter.
That'll be local MPPs that will send you up. I'm getting an nod from my mover as well.
Okay. Very good. Okay, I do have Councillor Biskin, if you want to make a comment to close this out.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair. Just one more addendum to that, just to the Solicitor General as well, because they are in charge of OPP funding. If we're going to copy some of the ministers, might as well include them as well. Thank you.
Excellent. Good suggestion. So we'll add that, and that is amendable. Okay. So we have that. So I have to just read the motion that the following consent items have been given due consideration, be received, and that it include the resolution.
Yeah, we can take it as one motion, if that's the
Councillor Corbell.
Thank you. I would ask, through the chair, I think it would be appropriate to send it to the Minister of Education, Mr. Leckie.
Yeah, he's already included in that. We had him in there, Minister of Education. So, okay, so we're good with the way I did it. All in favor? Carried. We're going to call it unanimous. Okay, we are through the consent agenda. Thank you for that. We are on to 20.2, CCW 2023-309, County of Simcoe Paramedic Services COVID-19. No, hang on, sorry. That's part of my consent. Moving into 21, Land Ambulance. 21.1, CCW 2023-310, Dedicated Offload Nurse Program Funding Update. Mover and seconder for this, please. Moved by Councillor Miskinen, seconded by Councillor McDonald. Question concerns with this report? It's a good report. All right, seeing none, we have that item, CCW 2023-310, dated November 28th, 2023, regarding an update on Ministry of Health funding of the County of Simcoe Paramedic Services Dedicated Offload Nurse Program for 2023-2024 be received, and that the increased funding in support of a dedicated offload nurse program be utilized as generally outlined in item CCW 2023-310, and that further to the bylaw 6277, the warden and county clerk be authorized to enter into any necessary memorandums of understanding with the area hospitals to establish performance targets and financial adjustments related to hospital offload delay, that the General Manager, Health and Emergency Services and Chief Paramedic Services be individually delegated authority to adjust future funding allocations with partner hospitals located within the County of Simcoe in accordance with offload delay needs. I have a mover and a seconder. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. We are into 21.2, CCW 2023-315, Community Paramedic Home Visit Program Update. Question concerns with this report? Seeing none. Mover and a seconder, please. Seeing who? Oh, Councillor Dolan.
If I could just make a quick comment here. You know, we've tried a lot of things over the years, but this community paramedicine has been a home run. I heard from just on the weekend a woman who has her grandmother live with her, and she's 104 years old, and she wasn't feeling well, and they were really concerned about bundling her up and getting her out to a doctor, to a hospital. And the community paramedicine came to their home, spent lots of time with her, and she just couldn't, the granddaughter couldn't say enough good things about this program. So I just wanted to share that.
Well, we have our chief paramedic. Does anybody want to comment on this, or? No? Okay.
Through the chair, thank you, Councillor Dolan, for those messages. I am fortunate enough to have the CP out of hundreds that we've received in terms of the impact, so thank you for that.
Okay, comments? Councillor Sandu.
Thank you, Chair Leduc. I just have a question. This item, going from part-time to full-time, why was this not part of the budget? I know it says it doesn't impact the budget, but if there's I'm assuming when we're going from temporary to permanent, there's going to be a cost associated with it. Thank you.
I'll turn over GM Jane Sinclair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that question. This is the situation that we've been monitoring very closely. It started as a 4-year funding program, one time, through the Ministry of Long-Term Care. Because of the success that's been realized through this program and others across the province, earlier this year, they announced an extension of an additional 2 years. We've been provided very positive feedback from the province and anticipate this will become base funding rather than one time. As you may recall, at our earlier Committee of the Whole in November, we received notification that another type of funding for community paramedicine called HISH funding was made permanent after a number of years. So staff have been monitoring and hopeful that this would become base funding and would have included it within the budget. However, they have not they have not made that change with this particular funding stream. And as we continue with our recruitment and retention strategy, we know one of the significant areas is the need to provide more full-time permanent positions. And so with these particular 12 full-time positions, they are temporary positions. However, the community paramedics that are in those particular lines have permanent full-time lines in our regular operations. However, the trickle effect is 12 part-time paramedics are temporarily in the temporarily full-time in the regular positions, and so for those particular paramedics, there are limitations in terms of having temporary full-time lines. So everything from seniority, vacation, other types of benefit entitlements, they're not eligible because they're in temporary full-time lines, and even things of financial need, seeking mortgages, loans, etc. There's a difference between a temporary and a full-time line. So we have been monitoring this. We were hopeful that we would see it, the province change this to baseline. However, they have not. And with our ongoing discussions through labor relations, we felt that given it's been extended for another 2 years, that we are recommending they become permanent full-time positions. It will not impact the budget. Should the Ministry of Long-Term Care at some point decide to cease the program, then the positions will go through the normal changes in terms of seniority, layoff, et cetera, as per the terms and conditions within the collective agreement that provides for the paramedics in this service.
Thank you. To follow up, I support the ask, and I think this is good. When you say it won't impact the budget, are you talking about 2024 or the length? I think it mentions up to 2025. So you're saying it won't impact the budget for the duration of this?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Good comments, good question, good, nice reply. We got the insight on that. So I've got moved by, I'm going to ask Councillor Dolan if you want to move it, and then you've got a comment to make.
Thank you. Yes, I just wondered, through you, Mr. Chair, to GM Sinclair, would it be beneficial, I know you advocate all the time for this, but would it be beneficial to amend the recommendation to include a letter from the warden to Minister Jones and Minister Cho? It's the funding's through long-term care, is it not? So Minister Cho as well, with some examples of some real-life good news stories and advocating for it to be part of the base funding.
Through you, Madam Chair, a letter of advocacy from this House would be most helpful in supporting the permanent continuance of this program. Yes.
So we have an amendment on the floor then, right?
Through you, Mr. Chair. We don't have a mover and seconder for the motion, so if Councillor Dolan would like to put that motion with the amendment, we can move in that direction.
Yes, I would like to do that. Thank you.
And I have a seconder. Councillor Cox will want a second. So we have that motion with the amendment to add the letter from the warden for advocating. And the warden's good with that? Okay. Any further comments or questions on this? So seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. We are on to 22, Long-Term Care Committee of Management. We have 22.1, Georgian Manor Construction Project, beds in abeyance. Any questions or concerns with this one? Okay, seeing none, moved by Councillor McDonald, alternate Councillor McDonald, seconded by Deputy Warden Coghlan. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. I am into 23, other matters of consideration. Anybody have any other matters of consideration? Seeing none, we are into 23.1, Affordable Housing Advisory Committee Report, November 21st, 2023. Moved by Councillor McClellan, seconded by Councillor Measures. Question or concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. I turn it back to you, Warden.
Thank you, Chair Leduc. And now Chair Dolan, if you'd like to take corporate.
Thank you, Your Worship. The first item is 24.1, a request for delegation of authority for plans of subdivision and condominium for the Township of Tiny. Any questions or comments on this item? Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Councillor Dolan, and through you, just like to make a brief comment on this this motion and to pass along our appreciation to the County of Simcoe for allowing Township of Tiny to take over delegation of plans of subdivision and development moving forward. We have applied for 5 areas of the Township of Tiny to begin immediate development, and it's our intent to do that now that we have the ability to move forward. We're just waiting on the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, as I'm sure a number of us are, to get back to us. But again, just want to pass along our thanks and appreciation, and of course we'll look forward to working with County of Simcoe in the future moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Could I ask Councillor Evans and Councillor Miskimins to move in second, please? That item CCW 2023-298, dated November the 28th, 2023, regarding the Township of Tiny's request for delegation of approval authority for plans of subdivision and condominium be received, and that a memorandum of understanding to delegate the county's approval authority for plans of subdivision and condominium be finalized with the Township of Tiny, and that notice be provided to the Township of Tiny and the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing that the County of Simcoe intends to transfer approval authority for plans of subdivision and condominium within the geographic area of the Township of Tiny to the Township of Tiny in accordance with the Planning Act Regulations 297/97, and that the necessary delegation of bylaw and finalized memorandum of understanding be presented to County Council, and that the Warden and County Clerk execute necessary documents as may be required to delegate the County's approval authority for plans of subdivision and condominium to the Township of Tiny. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any contrary? Seeing none, that carries, and we'll move on to item 25.1, special collections options for consideration. So before we put this on the floor, through you, GM Elliott, I wondered if we had some comments from staff.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Dolan. Our Director of Solid Waste Management, Rob McCall, has asked to speak to this report just to offer a couple of points of clarity around the transition of the proposal. Thanks.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. The report, in some respects, speaks for itself, but I'll just outline a few things and provide one correction. The special collections contract does Christmas trees, the textiles and electronics is a program we started I want to say 5 or 6 years ago now. We have seen a continuing slight increase in tonnages, but no major jumps other than the year where we had to cancel it due to COVID. In the subsequent year, we obviously got double or even more than double. It's not being very well taken up, with only about 6% of homes using that collection program. There are numerous other alternatives, including free drop-off of that material at any one of our 8 sites. For both those materials, textiles, there's a lot of other options. Electronics, there are some other options, but that's something that's covered by a provincial program already, so we imagine that that will continue to be free at our sites for the foreseeable future. So in light of knowing that we're coming up for a new collection contract in a couple years' time, we wanted to bring this issue to Council's attention now so that we can go to the street for that new collection contract. Required trucks for it. Miller currently provides that service for us. It's been working quite well. Our tonnages are certainly going up on leaf and yard waste. In fact, our composting pads and facilities are fully utilized. In fact, we're at the worst sort of spot right now. It's been a long fall and must have been a good growing season. We've got a lot of leaves to manage at our sites, and we're crammed to the rafters as it is. The correction is the chart on page 6 of the report. It has erroneously shown the tonnage on facilities, and I apologize and ask your forgiveness. I didn't notice it till this morning, but it stuck out to me like a sore thumb. That 20,000 tons that we do at the facilities, we'd be overflowing significantly worse. It's closer to a number around 8,000 tons. So we do about 60% of the collection curbside, 40% direct delivery to the facility. So I didn't want to lead you astray on that. And what we're looking for, and we've proposed 4 different options so that when we bring this back to council, we can have a full discussion about what makes the most sense for the frequency of leaf and yard waste collection. There's options to keep it the same as it is, and there's the option to go right from the spring through the fall, and a couple of options in between for council's consideration. None of those considerations include the continuing textiles and electronics collections. Will reduce our costs in some respect for that, because that requires specialized leased vehicles, much like moving vans. You can't compact that type of waste in the back of a truck, and that's the reason for that. And I'd be happy to address any other questions that may come up.
Thank you, Mr. McCullough. Questions are I would ask for a mover and a seconder to put the report on the floor, and then we'll go into questions. So Councillor Laux and Councillor Fowler, that item CCW 2023-307 dated November the 28th, 2023, regarding special collection options for consideration be received. That curbside collection of textiles and electronics cease in 2025, and textiles be added to the existing bulky collection program as generally outlined in item CCW 2023-307, and that staff initiate a public procurement process to obtain current costing related to the service level for curbside of leaf and yard waste contained herein, and report back to council for further direction. So now we'll take questions, and I saw some cards and I've forgotten already. Councillor Van Stavern.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Question: is there a value to the textile recycling services? And where I'm coming from with this, we actually had a person question me last week of what we do in a small community with the textiles. We lost the Goodwill services in our area with Barrie and everything. There's some reform, but is there a value to the textiles, and is it something that could eventually be included on a permanent basis on our transfer stations?
Mr. McCullough?
Yes, through you. Thank you for the question. There is a value for them. We we do receive funding from the location that we've worked that actually does the processing of the textiles, the reuse, and the lower grade goes to rags. There is a value for it. We don't currently experience that when people drop it off to us. We've actually partners with Diabetes Canada, who provides the boxes at all our facilities and provides the service at no cost to us. They receive the value for the material in whichever way they deem best to deal with it.
So at this time, the best thing to do is refer all our questions to that there is boxes at each of the sites, and they can take them there, and they can not for a home pickup service.
Correct. There are some urbanized areas that some services do provide that service in some urban zones. So I'm not saying that that's not an option. It is. It's just not universally available throughout the county.
Councillor Gordon.
Thank you. With the only had one coffee. With the I won't even say that. With the expansion of fast fashion, proliferation, sorry, I had to get that out, of fast fashion, which seems to be really causing a real pressure on the garment industry and all the excess textiles. And if you're not familiar with fast fashion, it's, mostly stuff coming from Asia, produced relatively poor quality, but very cheap and available online. And, there's also allegations that it's ripping off the design of young entrepreneur designers, and they're mass producing it, whatever. Won't get into that, but the bottom line is there's a lot of waste material. And if we're going to get out of that business of collecting it, it might be helpful if we were to provide a page or something in our promotion on this, on where these bins are, whether it's kidney clothes or, there's all kinds of places that will collect these, usually at a superstore parking lot. I know we can't curate and keep up to date, but maybe coming out of the gate, we could contact at least some of the bigs and find out where these bins are located and give people that option so they aren't just firing it into their garbage can. Because that'll be what happens. Same thing with old VCRs. The harder we make it on people, unfortunately, laziness kicks in, and we'll find that stuff in the black garbage can, and that'll just be what happens. I'm not suggesting that it's worthwhile to continue this. I think it's a good recommendation that we get out of this, but let's provide an option. And also let people know that the next time they drive by their friendly neighborhood transfer station, they can drop off those electronics very easily at any of our Simcoe transfer stations. So I think this is a worthwhile effort. For heaven's sake, let's not touch the leaf and yard waste collection, because those of us with forests, which are most of us, if we put any more obstructions in the way of getting rid of this stuff, people are just going to start dumping it in our forests and along the side of roads. We already see that with garbage. So I think it's worthwhile, but perhaps we can undertake a public education campaign on where this, these materials, especially the fabrics and whatnot, could be dropped off instead of, putting them on the, dumping them in your garbage bin.
Director McCullough.
Thank you, and through you, thank you for the comments. We agree entirely. The proposal as it stands now is we would do the collections in 2024. Following that, we would do promotion and education to allow our residents to understand what alternatives are available that may be best for them. So we are endeavoring to do that should the recommendations go through as presented.
Thank you. Councillor Leduc.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm going to suggest I'd like to see option 3 on the table, where we could add some waste collections to it. We're removing the textiles and the electronics. So I assume there would be zero, basically little increased cost to us. I would like to see pickups done in the August-September range. There's nothing for, and when it comes to urbanized centers, we do have a lot of people that have gardens. Gardening has become a big one. We see since the pandemic, everybody's been into gardening. So I think that's somewhere we can go, because a lot of waste comes from your garden. People are pruning them steady, so I'd like to see that moved. When it comes to textiles, we will still have it after we drop it. It'll be in the bulk system, so you'll be able to do the bulk system, and I think education is the big one. There's many textile bins in communities, and it's just a matter of people knowing where they are, and so promoting that. But I certainly will support option 3. It's been something we've been asking for a long time out of Bradford West Glenbury, is this collection and moving it through the summer, because there is a lot of yard waste that comes from the summer. Even though they talk about grass clippings, we're not going to eliminate that. But at the same time, there is garden waste and tree trimming. I have fruit trees and trees in my property, and I trim them all the time, so I need to get rid of that. So I'm in support of option 3 if council is. So I'd like to put that on the floor as an option. Thank you.
Director McCullough.
Through you, Madam Chair, just as a matter of clarification, should the council or committee agree with the recommendation as it laid out, we would go to the street and get pricing on all 4 options and then have the discussion when it comes back to council as to which option makes most sense to council with the financial implications in front of you.
Thank you. Councillor Sandhu.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a comment that I agree with the staff report about textiles and electronics. I know there's other options out there because I'm speaking from my personal own household. Every 3 months we get a call from, I believe it's the Diabetes Association, where they come to our house and pick up. My wife puts it in the bags and it's left outside on the porch, and they come every 3 months. So the options are there. And from the report, you see it's 6%, not even full 6% that there, and we have other options, and I agree with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bell.
Mine was just actually in regards to is there an approximate amount that we know we would save on this? I know it's such a minimal amount of users, it would be probably nominal.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. It's hard to say exactly what will happen under the next contract, the pricing, as to what would happen coming back in. We know we did go to the street and look for a new special collections contract a few years back. We only had a single bidder, remembering this is labor heavy collection. We run into the same sort of servicing problems we did 3 or 4 years ago when we were doing manual collection. It's the same sort of thing exacerbated, and we believe overall the special collections contract is likely to go up significantly. It's hard to predict what that amount would be and what that charge might be for the continuing textile and electronics. The recommendation made by staff is to remove that, knowing there's a financial implication, but again, the amount of use by our residents is so low, it's hard to justify that financial investment.
Just to follow up. I just wanted a clarification on the value of the textiles as well. I mean, I don't think there's a value per se other than the grant money, right? I mean, if we were looking at a commodity value, by the time you ship it and you process it, we're probably at a loss as well.
We are certainly at a loss if you include the cost of collection, but it's actually a significant portion that does come back to the county. The shipping to the location, you're right that becomes an issue that would have to be considered as part of it, but there is a substantial value. I mean, diabetes wouldn't be doing this if they weren't somehow making money overall for their charity, right? So there is some money certainly involved in this venture as far as the value of the commodity. I'm sorry I don't have that number off the top of my head for you today.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, through the chair. I have 2 questions, and I'll start with one, and there's kind of a wee bit on the side here, but in the new waste calendar, there was no printed zone 1 or 2 mapping in the calendar, and I was just curious if that was going to be advertised in a separate publication, because that would affect the leaf and Christmas tree, yard waste, etc. So that's the first point. And then the second is, and forgive me if I didn't say this in the report, but if it's 6% for collection for textile and electronics on the roadside, do we have numbers as to electronic collection percentages for residents using the transfer stations currently? And I'm assuming we don't track textile then at landfills if we're just using bins, but if I could get clarification on those 2 points, please.
Thank you, Director.
Yeah, your second question first. We don't have a number. What we do have is tonnages. Unfortunately, I don't think I have that in front of me. Hang on. Textiles, we're doing about 150 to 130 to 150 tons per year at our sites, and we're doing about 90 tons per year in the curbside collection. With respect to electronics, we're doing about 100 tons per year curbside, and 450 to 500 tons at our facilities. If that answers the first question. Unfortunately, I don't have a count of the number of people. We certainly have a count of the number of people that use our facilities. We don't track it by a material type. The first question that was regarding the calendar and why we don't have the Zone 1 and Zone 2 maps. It's because we did look at producing that. It was too complex. The number of houses that or the number of zones, we certainly have printed maps here. There's sort of a 4 foot by 4 foot that we have. And even then, the scale of the zones between Zone 1 and Zone 2 is too small to make a lot of sense when you overlay the streets and things like that on it. What I would say is that we continue to encourage residents to utilize the app. That's where you get the best information about what your location is. We have a great usership of the app. If I'm not wrong, I believe we have over 80,000 people receiving either through the app or through one of the having their address entered and getting text update or email updates from the county. That is something that we would continue, but the Zone 1 and Zone 2 would have been too confusing, unfortunately, to lay that out to the residents. We did do direct mail out of postcards to all those locations that are in the zones that are changing, and certainly we have starting next week with the new zone pickup with one of the zones going to 2 recycling weeks in a row and then garbage. So we've done our best job to try and make people aware of that, both through managing your waste, a direct postcard to those locations that are changing, and then certainly the app and all the messaging that comes through that will be done in advance. But the real answer to your question is the map was too complex for people to reasonably interpret at the size it would have had to be.
Thank you, Director. Love the app. It's saved me many times. Councillor Fowler.
Thank you. If we go with option 3 and we find that there's not an appetite to increase the leaf yard waste pickup, is there a means we can stagger the pickup a little more evenly throughout the year? I'm getting a lot of people coming to me saying that they do the no-mow May and whatnot, so that they have this pilot that happens over an 8-week period over the summer. So is there a way like to adapt to that? Like take it from April, for example, and move it to July or August? Is that feasible?
Director McCullough.
We can look at some of those options. My initial concern would be is they have to hire staff to be able to do that. Obviously, the spring and the fall is when we get a lot of materials. In fact, we need 12 or 13 rear load trucks doing nothing but leaf and yard during those periods. During the summer, it's much lighter. We're looking at maybe as low as 4 to 6 trucks that are out doing that. We could look at that. What we like to do is keep it in chunks. So if they're hiring, 12 drivers, 12 swampers to do the spring and the fall, then the ones that we're doing it in the middle, if we had them for 2 weeks, off for 2 weeks, had them again for 2 weeks, off for 2 weeks, had them again for 2 weeks, off for 2 weeks, it's going to make the labor costs much higher and much more difficult. But we'll look at that when the financials come back in and we report back to council on what options are available to you.
Thank you, Director. And Councillor Fryer.
Thank you, Chair. And my question is actually in the same vein as Councillor Fowler's. In Collingwood's case, we're lucky enough to have a volunteer group who's worked very hard called Pollinate Collingwood, and they've actually moved us into being named a bee city. Collingwood's considered a bee city. And one of the requests they've made to council is consideration to have the pickup of the spring and leaf and yard waste done later because of the protecting the insects prior to April. So I wondered if I could ask Director McCullough how you determine which zones are going to be done for the 8 weeks of service, and if there's perhaps a process that Collingwood could apply to have it done later.
Director McCullough?
Through you, Madam Chair, we like to treat all municipalities the same. No matter where they are, it would be too complex to advertise different programs for different areas. So my thought would be no. We try and make our best decision on the collection times from the zones where we used to do the southern zone. Before we had Zone 1 and Zone 2, we tried to do the southern part of the county earliest in the spring because that's when snow was generally gone there first, and then the second week we'd go to the northern areas. With the new zones, we're unable to do that. They're basically mixed in and around. So that's not something that we'll be able to do going forward. I think it is going to be easier to communicate to residents when their leaf and yard waste week is, because it will always be on their garbage week now that we split it up. So that's going to make promotion and education of that program easier going forward. With respect to the No Mow May, I would leave it that residents can choose what they think is best for them. It does make sense to me that that would be beneficial to the insects and such that are available, although I am a little concerned that there's been no scientific study to determine the actual efficacy of the No Mow May program. And I know it's a fairly new program, and I hope there would be a scientific study to show the validity that makes sense. It does seem to make sense, but I did do some research and found that there was no definitive research yet on whether that or how helpful that No Mow May program is.
Thank you, Director. Next, I have Councillor Snell.
Could I, sorry, I was just going to say I appreciate the Director's comments, and I recognize it's a complex issue trying to deal with a large county and get the job done. So I appreciate those comments, and we'll consider those. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fryer. Councillor Snell.
Thank you, through the chair. My comments and perhaps suggestion is more around the batteries and the textiles. With the amount of gaming and electronics and whatnot that are going on, obviously this is a hugely consumable product in regards to the batteries. And I wonder if there's an opportunity to partner with our school boards, given that Simcoe County District School Board has 60,000 students in our area, and the Catholic Board, accounts for about 20,000. Who knows how many are actually in our communities? But if there is an income potential with the collection of both these products, maybe that's an incentive for the school boards, because their parent committees are always looking for fundraising opportunities, and it would just be a turnkey opportunity for students to be able to bring them right into a facility and then figure out the details of how we collect them. We could even make really creative battery containers where the kids can come in and drop them and see them fill up or something like that. Has there been any discussion to explore that and perhaps share the savings with the school board? Thank you.
Thank you. A clarification, Director, between batteries and electronics.
Yes, thank you. First, I will note that batteries are unchanged in this program. Batteries are actually, the battery collection we do in the fall is done by the regular garbage and recycling truck drivers, and we would continue that. That program's unaffected. Electronics is the one that we're talking about, which is the separate collection and bag collection that we've done for the past 4 or 5 years. So we continue, the battery program continues to be very good for us. Some schools continue to do this program. We've had problems. Parent groups have gone out on our battery collection and pre-collected it and taken it into the schools. I will never recommend schools bring hazardous waste into them carried by students. Batteries sweat. There's acid on the outside of batteries, and we've been in schools for our school program where they have elementary school kids separating the batteries to make sure there's no lithium or putting tape on it. I think that's ridiculous. I don't think there's any way that I'll ever recommend that the schools provide, that we partner with the schools in any way on a hazardous waste program.
Thank you, Director. So a very good point, though, that in our communications to be clear that we're talking electronics and not batteries, because if we think that, then obviously a lot of the population is going to think that as well. Councillor Cox.
Yeah, through the chair, further to Councillor Snell, there are schools, though, that do get the big bin in, and they do collect the electronics, and it is a good fundraiser, so, but they're not the batteries, and you've probably seen that, Councillor Snell, also. Thank you.
Thank you. We've had good discussion. I'm just going to provide a comment. If you ever want to upset a resident, tell them that they should keep their grass clippings on their lawn and see the kind of response you get back from that. And also a PSA to anyone whose municipality is has part of Zone 2 in it. It's a small part of mine, but still I have residents in Zone 2 that this week is recycling, next week is recycling, and the week after that is garbage. Is that right, Director?
Yes, you're right.
So I'm sure any help communicating that to your residents would be really helpful to the county. So hearing all that, all those in favor of the recommendation as was read about a half an hour ago. Any opposed? That is carried. Next, we'll move on to item 26.1, which is the Economic Development Subcommittee report from November the 14th. Any questions, comments? Seeing none. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Bell, seconded by Councillor Greenlaw. All those in favor? That's carried. Are there any other matters for consideration for corporate services? Seeing none, I'll pass it back to the warden. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Dolan. And we just have one under performance management. We do have to go into camera, but we'll do performance management, then we'll take a break. Chair Cox.
Okay, performance management 27.1. A mover and a seconder, please, for the recommendation. Moved by Councillor Fowler, second by Councillor Greenlaw. That item CCW 2023-308 dated November 28, 2023 regarding development charge deferral request be received, and that the warden and the clerk be authorized to execute a development charge deferral agreement for 2026 line 11 Bradford West Gwillimbury. Questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Van Staveren.
Thank you. In the report I read, none of the current exemptions or deferrals under the new amendments to the DC Act apply to this project. We're anticipating, can I have an explanation that we are anticipating a change to this Act? And are they going to be totally exempt from all development charges going forward? I still look at it somewhat as a residence, and I don't know if this is a self-service project or if there are services from Bradford being supplied here. Thank you.
Through the chair to CEO Aiken. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. And I had the treasurers here as well. Maybe Leland, you want to deal with the question?
Thank you through the chair. Yes, the anticipation is that the next development charge study, if I have your question correct, would incorporate various changes and exemptions.
So will we be looking at all development charges for all seasonal units that are going to be constructed, seasonal employees, because we do have farmers in our area who have seasonal residents, and are they going to be exempt from further creation of these units?
Yeah, maybe I'll deal with this one. As the report points out, our DC bylaw isn't up until 2027, but the exemptions that currently exist are more around affordable housing and some of those types of layouts. But at the time, employment housing came up as a potential discussion, and certainly what you're talking about, seasonal or full-time housing for farm workers. It certainly could be a consideration at that time. We're struggling to see what might come out of some of the DC changes. So the bylaw in 2027 is probably good timing, because I'm sure we'll have more information on that. And at that time, we would have a discussion as to whether or not County Council wants to include exemptions for specifically employment type housing.
Okay, and I agree with that, because we could be opening up a can of worms. We look at our region, particular Blue Mountain, who has supplied accommodation to seasonal residents for their staffing, and I'm an advocate for agriculture. There's no arguments that way, but we got to be very careful in what we're doing. I would almost prefer that we look at a refund system as opposed to a deferral system, because in 2 years from now we're going to go back to the Hambleys and say, you're not paying, we need you to pay now $88,000, they could be saying, sorry, that's not what we agreed to. So anyways, I'm a little concerned about setting precedents here.
Through the chair, I think that's a fair comment. Reason this is in front of you, there was a specific request, and generally we tend to accommodate the desires of the local municipalities with respect to DC exemptions. So that's why we're looking at this and suggesting that we do a one-time deferral for this specific project. But I think you're right. There is a potential concern about precedent, but I think a proper consideration at the time of the DC bylaw is probably the best move.
Councillor Anderson, then Councillor Greenlaw, then Councillor Gordon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also share that concern. I don't think I can support this motion as it stands now. And the only other question I would have is there a potential to actually do a reduction instead of deferral?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Leland.
Through the chair, no, there's not a potential for a reduction.
Okay, Councillor Greenlaw.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I agree with my colleagues. Is for us to give an exemption, which they ask for, when the municipality is not given an exemption, we should stay consistent to that. I don't think we should be given exemptions that the lower tier is not providing.
Did you want to comment on that, CAO Aiken? Because I
mean, it's factual. The lower tier municipalities, I understand it, is working with them on a late payment arrangement. But I think, as the treasurer pointed out, I don't believe our bylaw allows that, or does it?
Through the chair, just the deferral. Through council.
So that's kind of where our hands are tied. We can't mirror the local municipalities, so it's either a consideration of charging them the DCs that are due or deferring them.
Okay, Councillor Gordon.
Thank you. Through you, this is seasonal residents. So who lives there when it's not the off season? Are these things sitting empty, or are they Airbnb-ing and making some dough off of this? Like, why would you have an empty building that you could otherwise rent out and make money? How often are these occupied, and could the discounts be applied to when they are occupied to encourage the seasonal labor, but then, you know, maybe not give them full forgiveness because clearly it's not occupied year-round, unless it is. I'm just not familiar. I think I might have one of these in my municipality, so I'm a little green in that department.
Okay. Did you want to answer that? Good, go ahead.
Yeah, I can answer that. We have several temporary housing situations for farming in our community, and they are seasonally occupied. The marsh has many of them. We bring in a lot of farmers from out of country to help with the marsh, and the Highland farmers, being Willemdale is a large farming producer. They have farms in Bradford and as far north as New Liskeard. So it's a temporary housing. It's not Airbnb. There's no profit being made here. It's we deferred it in Bradford to help out the situation. We're looking at our DC bylaws too in the future. We'll be dealing with that and finding a way to entertain these systems. We're looking at Bill 23 to see if there's a way that we can deal with this in the future. But we have deferred this, and it's not our first deferral. In Bradford, we've done others also with industrial. We've done industrial deferrals and things like that. So it's not really a precedent setting. We're just deferring. It's not saying we're not collecting the DCs. We're putting on deferred for now, and until we review the bylaws, we'll then come up with a solution on how to deal with it.
Go ahead,
not
Councillor
Airbnb.
Thanks. So I guess I'm still unclear how, I mean, is it like 4 months of the year, 6 months of the year they're occupied? And then if nobody lives in these, why wouldn't we put some strings on it saying that the farmers need to provide at least some short-term rental options, if not through one of these platforms, to give people a place to live? If the county's going to be eating this and everyone else in the county is going to fund this shortfall as a result, then why couldn't Mina and his team, perhaps use it for some supportive housing for 6 months of the year or something? I'm not sure. It just seems, because of its seasonality, I think it's an opportunity lost just to forgive this, apply this cost across the whole municipality, and then leave these rooms vacant.
Councillor Dolan had.
Thank you. I have some experience with seasonal worker dwellings, and the Ag Canada allows 8 months of continual. And typically they're staggered. So the farms I'm familiar with, they come in January and stay till September, and then a new group comes in April and stays till December. So the units are only empty for about 2.5, 3 weeks over the Christmas season. And it's typically communal living. Like there's separate bedrooms, but there's like one kitchen or, 2 or 3 fridges. It's not like, single family units, and typically on farm. So because of things like biosecurity, you would not want like tourists coming onto your farm because of issues with biosecurity. Having said that, if I could just ask my question now.
Sure.
So I just want to be clear. So you're asking the county for an exemption because there's no way in our bylaw we can defer, but that Bradford is deferring and not exempting.
Go ahead, CEO Egan.
Yeah, just for clarity, and I would agree with your assessment on the usage of the building, but just for clarity, this would be a deferral too. And if in the future County Council decides not to add on-farm accommodations as an exemption through a future DC update, then the monies would be due by Willemdale Farm at that time.
Thank you. Okay, now I have Councillor Measures.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. When it comes to DC deferrals or reductions, it's of my personal opinion, the only one that I always support is Habitat for Humanity when they ask for that type of reduction at our local municipal governments. And this does seem to me as a project that does need to be discussed at a future date. So I think, as the CAO indicated, we could discuss this when we review the DC bylaws, which unfortunately are not till 2027. I'm wondering if that shouldn't be actually moved up a little bit. We should be able to move that forward a little bit, given the fact that we're going to be going through this economic downturn for a little while now, and I think we do need to have this discussion a little sooner. Otherwise, we're going to keep seeing these type of recommendations come to this council, which speaks to the point that was brought up earlier that this could be a, setting a precedent by doing so. So I'm not in favor of this motion as it's presented at this time.
Okay, I have Councillor Bell, Burkett, Sandu, and Smith.
Great. If the House does support this, I just want a clarification. There will be interest applied to this?
Through the CAO or Leland?
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
If the House supports this motion, will there be interest applied to this deferral?
Through the chair, no, there won't.
Okay, Councillor Burkett.
Thank you, through the chair.
I can't support this. As we all know, development charges are there for a reason. If we're going to defer it or forgive it down the road, it's got to be made up somewhere else. And to Councillor Duke's point, there are others in his municipality that are doing the same thing. Are they going to come and ask for forgiveness for whatever they built? I'm sorry, but I can't support it.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, Councillor Sandhu.
Thank you, Chair. One of my comments were made by Councillor Dolan that this is not a 2-month or a 3-month thing. It's almost 8 to 9 months of the year, if not longer, that those dwellings are used. And we also have to understand that during COVID, these farms did have places for these seasonal workers to stay, and they weren't up to par. So during COVID, the government agencies forced them to provide proper accommodations, which should have happened from day one, and this is also part of that. And we're not, we're deferring it. We're not waiving it. And the way I see it is, it's economic development. It's helping the farmers that feed all of you guys here, along with our families and communities. And if someone else comes to it, it's judged by case by case. It's not precedent settings. Anything that's creating jobs or helping to create jobs and to help bring food to our tables, I will always support it. And I'm in favor of this, and we did it at our municipality level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll go to Councillor Brian Smith and then Deputy Warden Coughlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I cannot support this either. I'm struggling a bit with the whole part-time employment question. I mean, if we're occupying these buildings 8, 9, 10 months of the year, I would hardly call that part-time. It's actually a full-time operation, although they're using part-time employees, which lots of full-time businesses do. And I think the bigger issue here is if we're going to do this for one sector, then what about the rest of the sectors? What about other businesses who come forward and say, you know, we need a break too because we're all struggling? I don't think there's a corporation out there today that isn't struggling when it comes to employees and housing and so on and so forth. I can tell you that I personally own homes that I buy for our employees. I'm not coming in asking for any deferrals. It's part of doing business. And I would also tell you that in many cases these homes are not up to standards, and that's a concern as well. So development needs to pay for development. If there's other things this House wishes to look at in future, I have no issue with that, but I really struggle with this and I cannot support it. Thank you.
Deputy Warden Coughlin.
Thank you, Chair Cox. My comments are similar to those of others. I would rather see this House take a look at our DC background study before push it up. I do think that this is a one-off, and I do think that it is precedent-setting, and I feel that we're going to be having many, many more of these on our agendas, and if we want to, I don't like the one-offs. If you're going to change the rules, that's fine, but I won't be supporting this.
Thank you very much. Councillor Duke.
Yeah, this is on-farm housing. This is not part-time work. This is seasonal workers from migrant workers coming to Canada. We can't fill these jobs with Canadians. They won't take them. That's why you have migrants coming in to Canada to do work, farming work. So this is a housing that was provided by a farm operation for the migrant workers. It's seasonal in that need. There's no loss. It's a deferral of DCs. It's not a loss. There's no loss of income here. And this is, I worry about the fact if you guys want to review the DC bylaw before 2027, be careful what you wish for. Because Bill 23, we don't have to implement the DCs until we actually review our DC bylaw. We can still charge the affordable housing aspect because we haven't reviewed our DC bylaws. That's what I'm being told in Bradford. I'm not opening up our DCs because we can charge for that. Until we open the DCs, we don't have to review that. And I'm going to ask, I would refer to our treasurer to see when it comes to that DC review, are we able to charge for the affordable housing as our DC bylaws state now? And when we open it, we have to then comply to Bill 23.
Go ahead.
Through the chair, housing is an exempt service now and is not chargeable under the Act. That is changed last November.
Mm-hmm.
So affordable housing is exempt, no matter if we updated our bylaws or not?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. So this doesn't fall under that, but it is going to be talked about in the future by the province, being part of this affordable housing.
This type of seasonal housing is a different, is not included in the DC Act as an exemption, as it's outlined with affordable housing types. And this would be reviewed as a separate one for just farm seasonal housing.
Thank you very much. What I'm hearing then is that everyone has a concern with this, and I myself am worried that if we set this precedent, what about the other people who have the same type of business and come back and say, well, they got deferral, like didn't we, and where's my money back? But anyway, we will call the vote, and all in favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Any other matters for consideration and performance management? If not, I'll hand it back to the warden. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So why don't we take a break now till 10:55 and then have a coffee, and then we'll come back in camera. Thank you. Okay, I'll call the motion to go in camera because then we'll need a few minutes to clear the gate. To go in camera, moved by Councillor Miskimins, second by Councillor Fryer, that the Committee of the Whole resolve in a closed session at 10:56 under the authority of the Municipal Act, Section 239(2)(c), a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, Section 239(2)(i), a trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, financial, or labor relations information supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board, which, if dissolved, could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position or interfere significantly with the contractual or other negotiations of a person, group of persons, or organization. And Section 239(2)(k), a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. Please don't ask me to read that again. All in favor? That is carried. So we just have to secure the House and no microphones. these are the motions here with my mover and second. No vote required.
Announcing. I apologize for the verbiage.
Yeah. Okay, it looks like we're ready to go here again, so I do have to read. The motions have already been voted on, but I do have to make the announcement now. So moved by Councillor Snell, second by Councillor Fowler. The direction in camera and recommendations contained within confidential item CCW 2023-164 dated November 28, 2023 regarding a trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, financial, or labor relations information supplied in confidence to the municipality or the local board, which, if disclosed, could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position or interfere significantly with the contractual or other negotiations of a person, a group of persons, or organization, or a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of a municipality or local board be voted upon and approved in accordance with section 239(6)B of the Municipal Act. And that was carried. And the second motion I had was moved by Councillor Rawson, second by Councillor Fryer. The direction in camera and recommendations contained within confidential item CCW 2023-314 dated November 28, 2023 regarding a proposed and pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board be voted upon and approved in accordance with section 239(6)B of the Municipal Act, and that was voted on and approved. So now I would look for the committee to hold a rise and report to council to reconvene. So that moved by Councillor Measures, second by Deputy Warden Coghlan, that the committee of the whole rise and report and resume sitting at County Council at 11:57. All in favor? That is carried. Yeah, I made it by 3 seconds there. So then we'll look for the reports from the committees, which would be Chair Cox, if you could start us.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Evans, that the performance management recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole report dated November 28, 2023 be approved, including the confidential item. Any questions or comments?
So I'm seeing none.
I got one. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't have said it.
Councillor Ledoux.
I would just like the issue with the deferred DC be pulled for.
I think it's the only issue, isn't it? Oh no, you're right. We did have the
confidential
archives first, so we'll pull that one for a separate vote. So on the rest, as amended, all in favor? That is carried. So I'll need a motion from the clerk now.
And Warden, I'd like to call a recorded vote for that.
Yes.
Thank you.
So same motion but a recorded vote. So I'll get the clerk to read it for me, and then we'll, if you can bring it up.
Thank you, Warden. So Council just approved the performance management recommendation from today's Committee of the Whole, with the exception of CCW 2023-308, Development Charge Deferral Request. It's item 27.1 on today's agenda. And
it was defeated.
And it was defeated. So what I believe should be the case here is a motion to basically reintroduce this motion. And I need a mover and a seconder to put that back on the floor here. Because the motion was defeated in committee, so there's no recorded vote to take place at this time. But it can be moved and seconded at this time now, and we can move to a recorded vote. So I need a mover and a seconder.
I would assume Leduc and Councillor Sandu.
So that would be the same motion as was defeated earlier?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's that item CCW 2023-308, dated November 28, 2023, regarding development charge deferral request be received, and that the warden and clerk be authorized to execute a development charge deferral agreement for 2026 line 11 Bradford West Gwillimbury. So that's now on the floor, and Councillor Leduc has requested a recorded vote. And I will take that recorded vote now, beginning with Councillor Leduc. Please indicate yay or nay when you hear your name. Councillor Leduc.
Yay.
Councillor McDonald.
Point of order. Just on the process, sorry. Is this a reconsideration? So we are reconsidering this to come back onto the floor? I just want to be clear on what I'm voting on right now.
Through you, Warden, the motion at Committee of the Whole was defeated. The item's still coming forward under performance management, so it wouldn't be a reconsideration in my mind. The defeated motion was never, it was never ratified by council. Here we are at council looking to ratify. So the motion's just been put back on the floor. Is that satisfactory?
Leduc, go ahead.
Yeah, because it's a joint committee, joint meeting, it comes back to council, so we have to make that formalized vote. So I'm asking for a record vote because I want to make sure the farmers know who supports them and who doesn't support them. So I want to make sure.
All right.
Point of order again, Your Worship.
Okay, if it's a procedure question, yes, because we've already commenced with the vote. Go ahead, Councillor Measures.
Thank you, Warden. It is a procedural question to the clerk. Mr. Clerk, are we voting to put it back on the floor, or are we actually voting on the motion? As you said a moment ago, it's back on the floor again. So are we voting to put this motion on the floor of the council meeting?
So through you, Warden, I view this as the subject came up. We took a motion which was the same motion from earlier that was defeated, but it is now on the floor, a yay or nay vote on that the warden and clerk be authorized to execute that agreement.
So, Mr. Clerk, if I may, you're putting it on the floor under the recommendation of the warden. Is that correct?
It's the warden's choice to put it on the floor.
Yes.
I took it from the warden that we had a mover and a seconder.
So we had a mover and seconder, but we did not vote on that as a council. You're taking the warden's direction to put it on the floor.
The warden had, it's been brought on the floor. There was a request for a recorded vote, and we're now proceeding with that vote.
Okay, it's on the floor. Thank you.
Another procedure question, Councillor.
Through you, Warden Clark. So to the clerk, but should it not be in the negative sense because it has been defeated? So the motion on the floor should be not to approve, correct?
Through you, Warden, the motion earlier was defeated. It's as if it never happened in my mind, because it hasn't come to council yet. That's what we're doing now. It was reintroduced at council, just as if we had recessed for 2 weeks, and 2 weeks later, the motion was reintroduced at council. So it is a question in the affirmative here that the warden and clerk be authorized to execute the development charge deferral agreement.
Thank you for that clarity.
And another clarification. Go ahead, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to the clerk. So my understanding is if the motion was defeated, the mover or seconder of the motion that was defeated could only bring that back to the floor with a 2/3 vote. And I guess my other point is if the warden has indicated that he wants this back on the floor, I respect that, but he did ask for a mover and a seconder, and I do not believe a vote was taken on that. So if we've asked for a mover and a seconder, then I believe the House should have the opportunity to vote yay or nay to bring that back.
I won't die on this hill, so we can do it that way, or we can. If that's the way we would like to proceed, we can do it that way. I'll look to my clerk for advice. I think the vote's going to end up the same, but yes.
So through you, Warden, this isn't a reconsideration. It's not a vote to bring it back to the table. Council has not made a decision on the recommendation from committee. So in my mind, there's nothing to reconsider here. The subject was brought from Committee of the Whole, was brought forward to Council for approval, and that motion that was defeated earlier has been put on the Council floor now, and that's the vote we're taking.
Yeah.
So if I may, Your Warden, supplemental. So I thank you very much. I understand now it was in committee versus council. But at the end of the day, the warden did ask for a mover and a seconder in council to bring this to the floor, and we did not vote on that. So I think we need to do that.
That is what we're intending to do right now. A recorded vote has been requested on that.
But I just want to be clear, as the deputy warden was, what we're voting on here. If I'm not mistaken, the warden asked for a move and a seconder to put this on the floor, which we would need to vote on, and then vote on yes or no whether or not we support it or not, correct?
No, the direct motion has been put back on the floor. So we will reread the motion so that everybody's familiar with what we're voting on. Is that clear enough? We're good. Okay, so I'll get the clerk to reread the motion so that it's the same motion that was defeated in committee of the whole, but we'll reread it here as soon as I find it.
Sir, so I'll just start over here. We've only taken one recorded vote. What's on the floor here is that item CCW 2023-308, dated November 28th, 2023, regarding development charge deferral request be received, and that the warden and clerk be authorized to execute a development charge deferral agreement for 2026 line 11 Bradford West Gwillimbury. We had a request for a recorded vote from Councillor Leduc, and so we'll start with Councillor Leduc and go through in alphabetical order.
We're still getting points of order here, so I'll go back to Smith and then McDonald again. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just I feel compelled to make a comment based on Councillor Duke's comments on he wants this vote back on the table so the farmers know who supports them and who doesn't. I take great exception to that. I don't think a no vote or a yes vote is one way or the other whether or not we support farmers. I think it's a very different issue here, and so I take great exception to that. I want to make clear that whichever way I decide to vote has no bearing on how I feel or how I support farmers. Thank you.
Was that your comments as well, or go ahead?
Absolutely. I think we stand united with our farmers at all times, and I think that maybe a little bit softer words to my colleague, from my colleague.
If it makes you feel better as a farmer, I'm voting on this issue. Recorded vote.
Thank you, Warden. Is council clear on the motion in front of them? Thank you. So again, a recorded vote called by Councillor Leduc. Starting with Councillor Leduc, when you hear your name, please indicate yea or nay. Councillor Leduc.
Yay.
Councillor Sandy McDonald.
Nay.
Councillor McClellan.
Nay.
Councillor Measures.
Nay.
Councillor Miskimins.
Nay.
Councillor Norcross.
Nay.
Councillor Norris.
Nay.
Councillor Rawson.
Nay.
Councillor Sandu.
Yay.
Councillor Brian Smith.
Nay.
Alternate Councillor Sonder. Councillor Snell.
Nay.
Councillor Van Staveren.
Nay.
Alternate Councillor LaChapelle is currently absent. Councillor Anderson. Nay. Councillor Bell.
Nay.
Councillor Burkett.
Nay.
Councillor Cabral.
Yay.
Nay.
Sorry. Yay.
Thank you. Alternate Councillor Catherine McDonald.
Nay.
Deputy Warden Coughlin.
Nay.
Councillor Cox.
Nay.
Councillor Dolan.
Nay.
Councillor Evans. Nay. Councillor Fowler. Nay. Councillor Fryer.
Nay.
Councillor Gordon. Nay. Councillor Greenlaw.
Nay.
Councillor Hamlin is absent. Councillor Locks. Nay. Councillor LaRose. Nay. Councillor Lavoie.
Nay.
And lastly, Your Worship.
Nay.
Warden, I have a vote of 23 in favor, 27 against.
So motion is defeated. Thank you. That finishes performance management. So I'd go to Chair Leduc for Human Services.
I have it moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McDonald, that the Human Services recommendation contained within the Committee of Whole report dated November 28, 2023 be approved.
Any items to be pulled on that one? So all in favor of the motion? That is carried. And lastly, we have Corporate Services, Chair Dolan.
Thank you, Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Measures that the Corporate Services recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole report dated November 28th, 2023 be approved, including the confidential item.
Any items of concern under Corporate Services? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Any opposed? No. Good. So I have the consideration of the bills. Councillor Norcross.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Through you, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Burkett, the bills number 704123, 704223, and 7043-23 be enacted as bylaws of the County of Simcoe.
Everybody's heard the bills. Concerns? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Next, we have announcements. I'll do the first one. We have a flu shot clinic today, going until 3 p.m. So you've missed the early bird at 8:30, but it's going on until 3 p.m. in, I believe, the Oromadani boardroom. So still time to get your shot if you haven't had one already. Any other announcements? Okay. Councillor Miskmins and then Councillor Smith. Go ahead, Sean.
Thank you. Through you, Warden. As many of you know, it is still Movember month. There are still 2.5 days to contribute. I see a few. I know Councillor Evans has a good little stash happening there. Councillor Leduc has been growing it in. Myself, I always have facial hair, so it's no big deal to me. However, if anybody is considering donating to Movember, and men's health is very important because it is not dealt with enough. Men are raised and conditioned to walk things off, suck it up. They don't deal with their mental health or their physical health. It's really, really important that we raise a generation of men going forward that it's okay to be sick. It's okay to listen to your body. It's okay to feel the way that you feel and talk to others about it. So it's a really near and dear cause to me. And as part of my campaign, I have been doing a Save It or Shave It event, and it's looking like Shave It is going to happen. So you're about to say goodbye to these luscious locks of mine. However, if there is anybody in this house that wishes to save it, I can absolutely send you the link to that. I have to measure it. I was intending, if it's at the right length, to actually donate it as well, because we might as well get 2 uses out of this. And if somebody going through cancer treatment can get a wig with my hair, God bless them. We'll absolutely donate it to them. And if I may, Your Worship, one other announcement. We do have our tree lighting ceremony today in Tiny. So if anybody's looking to test out their 4-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, and snow towers, we would love to have you at Perkinsfield Park starting at 5 p.m. tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, and I look forward to the pictures. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship. And just a quick note, if you can't donate them, give me a call, will you? Your Worship, I'd like to talk briefly about the opening of our new TPAL Twin Pad Arena and Library, which will be coming up in February. We have slated some great events for that opening, and also for Wasaga Beach's 50th anniversary as a town, an incorporation and a town, which is happening in 2024. So our Breaking the Ice festival that will run all year long will start on February the 17th with Burton Cummings at our new TPAL, and February 18th with Blue Rodeo. And I would ask that anyone who's interested to get out there and get your tickets. They are selling quite quickly. I think we're about 65% sold on both of those as of now. And we've only been selling them this weekend and only opened to the public last night at 7 o'clock. The other thing I would say is to keep your eyes and ears open, because there's more great entertainment coming for that week and over the Family Day long weekend with some great NHL alumni and some amazing figure skating personalities that will be hitting the ice in that new TPAL as well. And to get out and see our new 20,000 square foot library, we look for your support. We've got to pay for this thing, $60 million, and so we're looking forward to seeing as many people there as we can. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, and Councillor Fryer.
Thank you, Warden, and maybe I'm more or less looking for an announcement. I noticed the CBC article yesterday, Committee in Charge of Two-Tier Regional Governance Review to hold public meetings in January, and it correctly listed the 6 regions that were being considered, and then it listed 6 meetings, and Simcoe County wasn't involved. So I wondered if I could ask through you to the CAO to give us an update on his understanding of in regards to public sessions for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, through your worship, this has been kind of a confusing process, as you know, since the county was named as one of the upper tier municipalities to be looked at in a regional review. We haven't heard too much. It went from potentially a facilitator to now the standing committee. The standing committee has, as I understand it, had a couple of meetings. They did, Councillor Fryer is correct, they did announce that there are a number of more planned. It's my understanding that there will be more, including potentially one in Simcoe County for an opportunity for the county and member municipalities to participate. I think that's my understanding. Certainly when we hear more information, we'll provide that to council through the clerk's office.
Okay, Councillor Dolan.
Thank you. I just wanted to take this opportunity to wish my colleagues all the very best of the season and a very, very happy holiday. I wish you all everything, lots of everything that you love the most over the holiday season. For me, that's going to be sleep. And just a very Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah to everyone, staff and council.
Councillor Cox.
Yeah, I just would like to invite everyone to the Coldwater Santa Claus Parade. It's at 5:30 this Saturday. And last Saturday we had our tree lighting and it lit right up. It was very lovely.
All the way to the top?
Thank you.
And I will be at that parade, so thank you. And I echo Councillor Dolan's, listen, everybody have a Merry Christmas and a great holiday season and a Happy New Year. And my favorite thing will be alcohol. That's what I'm trying to do. And for once, I don't have to drive anywhere. So with that, I'll look for the confirmatory bylaw. Councillor Norcross.
Thanks, your worship. Through you, moved by myself, second by Councillor Greenlaw, that bill number 7044-23 be enacted as a bylaw of the County of Simcoe.
Everybody's heard the motion. All in favor? That is carried. And lastly, I'd look for a mover and a seconder, Councillor McDonald and alternate Councillor McDonald, that we that the November 28, 2023 meeting at County Council be adjourned at 12:18. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you.
All rise for the warden.